You thought your soulmate loved you. What they hid changes everything. My child, there is a reason these words have found you today, a reason this title caught your attention and made your heart pause for just a moment before your mind could scroll away. Somewhere deep inside, you already sensed that something in your story did not add up. You felt love, yes, but you also felt confusion. You felt closeness, yet there was always a distance you could never fully explain. You told yourself that love is complicated, that people have flaws, that no relationship is perfect. And while all of that is true, there is also a deeper truth that has been quietly waiting to rise to the surface. You thought your soulmate loved you completely, openly, without reservation. But there was something they hid, not because they wanted to hurt you, but because they themselves were afraid of what the truth would cost. This message is not here to accuse or condemn. It is here to illuminate, to bring clarity where there has only been fog, and to give your heart the peace it has been desperately seeking. You see, real love has a way of awakening us. When we meet someone who feels like home, someone whose presence settles our nervous system and makes the world feel less heavy, our soul recognizes them before our logic does. That recognition is powerful, but it is also frightening. Love like that demands honesty. It demands vulnerability. And not everyone who feels soulmate-level connection is ready to be fully seen. Sometimes, the very depth of the bond is what causes a person to hide. They fear losing you, so they hide the parts of themselves they think might push you away. They fear not being enough, so they present a version of themselves they believe is safer, more acceptable, easier to love. What they hid was not always a lie spoken out loud. Often, it was a silence. An avoidance. A truth postponed. A wound left unspoken. You may have felt it in the way conversations suddenly changed direction. In the way certain topics made them uncomfortable. In the moments when their eyes went distant, as if they were carrying a weight they could not set down. You asked yourself if you were imagining it, if you were being too sensitive. You tried to love harder, to understand more, to be patient, because that is what your heart does. But love that asks you to ignore your intuition will always leave you restless. Your spirit knew there was more beneath the surface, and today, that knowing is being honored. What they hid was not always another person or a dramatic betrayal, though for some, it may have been. More often, what they hid was their unresolved past, their fear of commitment, their inability to fully choose you while still choosing themselves. They hid doubts they didn't know how to voice. They hid pain they never healed. They hid the truth about where they were emotionally capable of going with you. And while they may have loved you in the way they knew how, it was not the love your soul was asking for. That difference is subtle, but it changes everything. Love that is rooted in fear will always wear a mask. Fear of abandonment. Fear of failure. Fear of not measuring up. When someone loves you but has not yet faced their own shadows, they will unconsciously ask you to carry the weight of those shadows with them. You may have felt responsible for their moods, their distance, their inner storms. You may have felt like you were always waiting for the other shoe to drop, for the day when things would finally feel stable. This is not because you were unlovable. It is because they were unready. I want you to hear this clearly, because your heart needs it. What they hid was never a reflection of your worth. It was a reflection of their internal battle. You were not too much. You were not asking for too much. You were asking the wrong person for something they did not yet know how to give. There is a sacred difference between being loved and being chosen fully. They may have loved you deeply, but love without alignment cannot sustain what your soul longs for. There is a reason this truth is coming to you now. Perhaps you are at a crossroads. Perhaps you are still holding on, hoping that one day they will finally show up the way you need. Or perhaps you have walked away, but the questions still haunt you. Why did it feel so real if it ended like this? Why did they say they loved me, yet hide such important parts of themselves? Why do I still feel connected to someone who could not meet me where I stood? These questions are not signs of weakness. They are signs that your heart is awakening to a higher standard of love. What they hid has been shaping your healing, even if you didn't realize it. Every time you doubted yourself, every time you replayed conversations, every time you wondered what you could have done differently, you were trying to solve a puzzle that was never yours to solve. The missing piece was not your effort. It was their honesty with themselves. And that is something no amount of love from you could force. There is a divine compassion in seeing this clearly. Not with bitterness, not with blame, but with truth. When you see what was hidden, you can finally stop personalizing what was never about you. You can stop waiting for closure that only understanding can bring. You can release the fantasy of who they could have been with you and honor who they actually were in that season of their life. This is not a loss of love. This is a graduation of awareness. You may feel a wave of grief as this realization settles in. That is normal. You are not just grieving the person. You are grieving the future you imagined, the version of the relationship you hoped would unfold. Allow that grief. It is part of the healing. But do not confuse grief with regret. You did not make a mistake by loving deeply. Loving deeply is your strength. The lesson here is not to love less next time. It is to love with discernment, to honor both your heart and your intuition equally. There is something powerful that happens when truth replaces confusion. Your nervous system relaxes. Your heart exhales. The constant inner questioning begins to quiet. You start to feel grounded again, rooted in yourself instead of lost in someone else's emotional landscape. This is the beginning of your return to wholeness. This is where you reclaim the parts of yourself that were slowly shrinking in order to keep the connection alive. I want you to take a moment right now and check in with your body. Notice where you feel this message. Maybe it's a tightness in your chest finally loosening. Maybe it's tears rising unexpectedly. Maybe it's a sense of calm you haven't felt in a long time. These are not random reactions. This is your truth being recognized. This is your soul saying, yes, this is what I have been trying to tell you. What they hid may have delayed your healing, but it did not destroy your capacity to love. In fact, it refined it. You are becoming someone who can recognize emotional availability, consistency, and truth without needing to chase or convince. You are learning that soulmate energy is not just about chemistry or intensity. It is about safety. It is about alignment. It is about two people choosing each other without hiding, without fear-driven games, without half-truths. If you are still connected to them in some way, emotionally or physically, this awareness may feel unsettling. You may wonder what to do next. There is no rush. Clarity does not demand immediate action. It invites conscious choice. You get to decide what you are willing to accept moving forward. You get to decide whether a connection that requires you to ignore your inner knowing is something you want to continue feeding. This is your power returning to you. If you have already let them go, this message is here to release the last threads of self-doubt. You did not imagine the imbalance. You did not overreact. You were responding to something that was real, even if it was never spoken. You can honor what was beautiful without denying what was missing. Both can exist. And acknowledging both is what sets you free. There is a greater love ahead of you, one that does not require you to guess, to wait, or to translate silence. But before that love arrives, this truth needed to be integrated. You needed to see clearly what was hidden so you would never again confuse emotional intensity with emotional availability. This is not the end of your love story. This is the end of a chapter that was teaching you how to choose yourself without closing your heart. As we close this first part, I want you to make a gentle but powerful declaration, just for yourself. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Simply acknowledge this truth in your own heart. And if it feels right, go to the comments and write, "I see the truth now." This is not about blaming them. It is about honoring yourself. This is the moment where confusion gives way to clarity, and clarity becomes the foundation for the love you truly deserve. Stay with me. There is more that needs to be revealed. What they hid was only the beginning of the lesson. What comes next will change how you see love forever. You didn't lose yourself overnight. It happened slowly, in quiet moments you didn't notice at first. It happened each time you explained away something that hurt. Each time you softened your needs so the connection wouldn't feel threatened. Each time you told yourself that love requires patience, that understanding means enduring confusion. And while patience is beautiful, and understanding is sacred, there is a line where love stops being nurturing and starts becoming self-abandonment. This part of the truth is harder to face, but it is also where your real power begins to return. What they hid did not just affect the relationship. It affected how you saw yourself inside of it. You may have noticed that you became more anxious than usual. More alert. Always reading between the lines, scanning for shifts in tone, changes in energy, pauses that felt louder than words. This was not because you were insecure by nature. It was because your nervous system was trying to adapt to inconsistency. When love is clear, the body relaxes. When love is uncertain, the body stays on guard. You were responding intelligently to emotional instability, even if you blamed yourself for it. There is a deep grief that comes with realizing this, because it means admitting that part of you was surviving, not thriving. You were loving, but you were also bracing. Hoping, but also preparing for disappointment. That constant inner tension was not the price of loving deeply. It was the signal that something essential was missing. And what was missing was not effort or affection. It was emotional truth. They may have told you they loved you. They may have meant it in the only way they knew how. But love that is hidden behind fear cannot fully show up. Love that has not confronted its own wounds will always keep one foot out the door, even when the heart wants to stay. You felt that hesitation. You felt the almosts, the nearlies, the potential that never fully landed in reality. And that ambiguity slowly trained you to accept less than clarity. This is where compassion matters, both for them and for yourself. They did not wake up one day intending to deceive you. Most people hide because they are hiding from themselves first. They learned early on that vulnerability was dangerous, that truth led to loss, that being fully seen meant risking rejection. So they built emotional walls and called them boundaries. They called avoidance independence. They called silence peace. But your soul felt the difference. Your soul knew that love does not ask you to disappear. What changes everything now is that you are no longer trying to earn what should be freely given. You are no longer trying to prove your worth through loyalty, patience, or emotional labor. This awareness marks the end of a cycle. A cycle where you overgave to compensate for someone else's lack of presence. A cycle where you confused longing with destiny. A cycle where intensity felt like intimacy. This is not a failure. This is an awakening. You may be asking yourself why this connection came into your life at all if it was never meant to last in the way you hoped. The answer is not punishment. It is preparation. Some connections are not meant to be permanent, they are meant to be revealing. They come to show you where you still equate love with uncertainty, where you still tolerate emotional distance because it feels familiar, where you still hope someone will choose you fully if you just love them hard enough. Once that lesson is learned, the connection no longer has the same hold. There is also a sacred anger that may rise in you now. Anger at the time you invested. Anger at the parts of yourself that waited. Anger at the mixed signals you tried to decode instead of walking away. Let that anger exist without judgment. It is not bitterness. It is clarity forming a boundary. Anger, when honored, is simply self-respect waking up. It is the part of you that now knows you deserved more transparency, more consistency, more courage from the person who claimed to love you. What they had also kept you from seeing who you were becoming. You became someone who could love deeply without guarantees. Someone who could stay open even when answers were delayed. Someone who learned emotional intelligence not from books, but from lived experience. These are not small things. They are evidence of your capacity, not your weakness. The goal now is not to harden yourself. It is to protect that capacity by choosing connections that meet you with the same level of presence. You are not here to convince anyone to rise to your level. You are here to recognize who already stands there. This shift alone will change your entire relational landscape. When you stop chasing clarity, clarity begins to find you. When you stop explaining your needs, the right people will anticipate them. When you stop shrinking, the right love will feel spacious, not consuming. There is also grief in accepting that the version of them you fell in love with was partly potential. Potential is intoxicating because it feels like hope. But love cannot be built on what someone could be if they healed, if they chose differently, if they were ready. Love must be built on who someone is willing to be consistently. This realization does not erase the bond you felt. It simply places it in truth instead of fantasy. You might still feel moments of longing. That does not mean you are regressing. Longing is memory echoing. It will come and go like a wave. Each time it does, remind yourself of the whole picture, not just the beautiful moments. Remind yourself of the confusion, the pauses, the emotional distance you tried to normalize. This is not to punish yourself or them. It is to stay anchored in reality while your heart catches up to your mind. There is a version of you emerging now that does not negotiate with red flags. That does not romanticize inconsistency. That does not confuse emotional depth with emotional availability. This version of you trusts their intuition without needing external validation. They know that peace is not boring. Stability is not lack of passion. Safety is not settling. This version of you is learning that the right love feels calm, not chaotic. If part of you still hopes they will suddenly reveal everything, choose you fully, and meet you where you always stood, be gentle with that hope. It came from love. But also be honest with yourself. Change requires willingness, not just feelings. If someone could not show up with truth when the connection mattered, they are unlikely to do so without deep inner work. You do not need to wait for that work to happen. Your life is moving forward. This is where closure truly begins. Not with an apology from them. Not with a dramatic confession. But with your own understanding. Closure is recognizing that what you felt was real, and what was missing was also real. Closure is allowing both truths to coexist without canceling each other out. Closure is choosing to stop seeking answers from someone who avoided giving them and instead giving yourself permission to move on with clarity. Take a moment now and reflect on how this awareness changes how you feel in your body. There may be sadness, but there is also strength. There may be disappointment, but there is also relief. Relief that you no longer have to guess. Relief that you can stop holding space for someone who could not fully hold space for you. Relief that your heart can finally rest. If this message is resonating, if something inside you feels seen, I want you to mark this moment. Go to the comments and write, "I choose clarity over confusion." This is not a rejection of love. It is a commitment to truth. It is you choosing to build your future on emotional honesty, not emotional hope. This is not the end of your story with love. This is the turning point. In the next part, we will talk about what happens when you stop accepting hidden love and start aligning with the kind of connection that does not require you to abandon yourself. Stay with me. What comes next is where everything truly begins to change. There comes a moment after clarity settles in when the noise finally quiets. The constant inner dialogue, the replaying of conversations, the wondering what you should have said or done differently begins to fade. And in that silence, something unexpected happens. You start to feel yourself again. Not the version of you that was trying to hold everything together, not the version that was waiting for someone else to decide your worth, but the you that existed before the confusion took root. This is the phase no one talks about, but it is one of the most important parts of healing. When hidden love is exposed for what it truly was, there is often a hollow space left behind. It can feel like emptiness, but it is not. It is room. Room that was previously occupied by uncertainty, by anticipation, by emotional labor. Room that was constantly being filled with thoughts of them, their moods, their availability, their silence. Now that space belongs to you again. And at first, it may feel unfamiliar. You might even feel lonely in a way that doesn't make sense. That loneliness is not about missing them. It is about meeting yourself after a long absence. You may notice that your energy starts to return in subtle ways. You sleep a little deeper. You laugh without forcing it. You feel drawn to things you once loved but set aside. These are signs of alignment restoring itself. When you are no longer bracing for emotional unpredictability, your system begins to heal. You realize how much of yourself you were holding back, how often you were in survival mode while calling it love. There is also a deep reckoning that happens here. You begin to see patterns. Not just in this connection, but in past ones. You may recognize that this was not the first time you felt like you had to prove your worth, wait for consistency, or accept emotional crumbs while giving a full meal. This realization is not meant to shame you. It is meant to empower you. Patterns do not exist to trap us. They exist to be seen, understood, and ultimately broken. What you are breaking now is the belief that love must be earned through endurance. You are releasing the idea that if you just stay long enough, love will eventually become what you need. That belief often forms early, sometimes in childhood, sometimes through previous heartbreaks. It teaches us to normalize waiting, to romanticize struggle, to confuse attachment with devotion. But healthy love does not require you to abandon yourself. It does not ask you to stay silent to keep the peace. It does not punish you with distance when you ask for truth. As this understanding deepens, you may feel a shift in how you remember them. The memories soften. They lose their sharp edge. You can appreciate what was real without longing for what was missing. This is emotional maturity unfolding. It is the ability to hold complexity without getting lost in it. You are no longer defined by the story. You are the one telling it now. This stage is also where boundaries become natural instead of forced. You no longer have to rehearse what you would say if they reached out. You no longer need closure conversations in your head. Your boundary is internal. It is the quiet knowing that you will not re-enter a dynamic that costs you your peace. This is not bitterness. This is self-trust. You may still feel moments of tenderness toward them. That does not mean you want them back. It means your heart is intact. You are capable of compassion without self-sacrifice now. You can wish someone well without wishing them close. That distinction is a sign of growth. There is something else awakening within you during this phase. Discernment. You begin to notice how people show up, not just what they say. You pay attention to consistency. You value emotional availability over chemistry. You start to feel turned off by ambiguity instead of intrigued by it. This shift may surprise you. What once felt exciting now feels exhausting. What once felt boring may start to feel safe. This is not settling. This is your nervous system recalibrating. You are learning that peace is not the absence of passion. It is the presence of security. It is being able to exhale in someone's presence. It is knowing where you stand without having to ask. It is feeling chosen without having to compete with fear, avoidance, or unresolved pasts. This understanding will change the type of people you are drawn to and the type of people who are drawn to you. You may also notice a subtle grief for the version of yourself who didn't know better. Be gentle with that version. They did the best they could with the awareness they had. They loved bravely in a world that does not always reward vulnerability. That courage did not go to waste. It shaped you into someone with depth, empathy, and emotional intelligence. Those qualities will be cherished by the right person. There is a quiet confidence building now. Not the loud kind that needs validation, but the steady kind that comes from self-respect. You begin to trust that you will walk away sooner if something feels off. You trust that you will speak up even if your voice shakes. You trust that you will not shrink yourself to fit into someone else's emotional capacity. This trust in yourself is the real soulmate connection you were always seeking. If you find yourself wondering whether they ever truly loved you, here is the truth that brings peace. They loved you to the extent that they were capable at the time. That does not diminish the connection, but it does explain its limits. Love is not just a feeling. It is a skill. It requires self-awareness, courage, and emotional responsibility. Without those, love remains incomplete, no matter how intense it feels. You no longer need to analyze what they hid. You see it now. And seeing it has freed you. Your energy is no longer tied up in trying to understand someone who could not fully understand themselves. That energy is returning to you, where it belongs. And with it comes clarity about what you want moving forward. You want transparency. You want consistency. You want someone who chooses you without hesitation, without secrecy, without inner conflict they are unwilling to face. You want a connection where love is expressed, not implied. Where effort is mutual, not one-sided. Where you are met, not managed. These desires are not unrealistic. They are reasonable. They are healthy. As this part of your journey unfolds, you may feel a growing sense of anticipation. Not for them, but for what is possible now that you are no longer anchored to hidden love. This anticipation is not anxious. It is grounded. It comes from knowing that you will recognize the right connection not by intensity, but by how safe you feel being yourself. Take a moment now and acknowledge how far you have come. You have moved from confusion to clarity, from self-doubt to self-trust, from longing to understanding. This is not a small shift. This is a transformation. And it is preparing you for a different kind of love, one that does not require you to lose yourself to be close to another. If you feel ready, I want you to mark this stage of your healing. Go to the comments and write, "I choose myself with clarity." This is not a rejection of connection. It is an affirmation that you are no longer willing to be half-loved or half-seen. Stay with me. In the next part, we will explore what happens when you finally align with a love that has nothing to hide and how this new standard reshapes your entire future. There is a quiet shift that happens after you choose yourself, and it does not announce itself loudly. It arrives gently, almost unnoticed, like a change in the air before the season turns. You start to move differently through the world. Your decisions feel less reactive. Your emotions feel less tangled. You are no longer scanning every interaction for signs of rejection or hidden meaning. Instead, you are present. Grounded. Awake. This is the phase where your life begins to reorganize itself around truth rather than longing. When you stop accepting hidden love, you unknowingly send a signal to everything around you. Not just to people, but to opportunities, experiences, and even to yourself. The signal is simple but powerful: I will not abandon myself to be chosen. That signal changes the quality of what you attract. It changes who feels comfortable entering your space and who quietly fades away. People who thrive on ambiguity may feel unsettled by your clarity. People who avoid emotional responsibility may feel exposed by your boundaries. And that is okay. Not everyone is meant to come with you into this next chapter. At first, this new way of being may feel strange. You might wonder if you are being too guarded, too selective, too calm. You might miss the adrenaline of uncertainty, the emotional highs and lows that once made love feel intense. But intensity is not intimacy. Intensity is often the nervous system responding to unpredictability. Intimacy is the nervous system feeling safe enough to relax. As your body learns this difference, you begin to crave peace over passion that costs you your center. You may notice that conversations change. You listen more closely to what people show you rather than what they promise. You are no longer impressed by words alone. You look for follow-through, consistency, presence. This does not make you cold or cynical. It makes you discerning. Discernment is not closing your heart. It is protecting it so it can open in the right places. This stage also brings an unexpected sense of grief, not for them, but for the life you were living while disconnected from yourself. You may look back and realize how much energy you poured into managing emotions that were never yours to fix. How often you put your needs on hold so the connection wouldn't feel threatened. Allow yourself to mourn that time, not with regret, but with compassion. You were learning. You were becoming. As you stand more firmly in your truth, something else begins to happen. You stop chasing alignment and start embodying it. You no longer need to convince anyone of your value. You no longer feel the urge to over-explain or over-perform. Your presence speaks for itself. This is where confidence becomes quiet and powerful. It is not about being desired by many. It is about being deeply known by the right ones. You may also notice that your standards feel clearer, but not rigid. You are not creating a checklist to control outcomes. You are tuning into how things feel in your body. You are asking yourself simple but profound questions. Do I feel safe here? Do I feel seen? Do I feel respected? Do I feel at ease being myself? These questions become your compass. And when the answer is no, you no longer argue with it. This does not mean you will never feel fear again. Vulnerability will always carry some risk. But now, fear no longer leads. It informs, but it does not decide. You trust yourself to handle disappointment if it comes. You trust yourself to walk away if something no longer aligns. That trust is what makes you strong. As your inner world stabilizes, your outer world begins to respond. You may find yourself drawn to new environments, new routines, new forms of expression. Things that once felt out of reach begin to feel possible. Not because circumstances magically change, but because your self-perception does. You are no longer waiting for permission to live fully. You are giving it to yourself. This is also where love begins to feel different. Not urgent. Not consuming. But expansive. You are open without being porous. You can care without clinging. You can connect without losing your center. When someone new enters your life, you do not rush to define it or fantasize its future. You allow it to unfold naturally. You observe how they show up when things are easy and when things are uncomfortable. You pay attention to whether their words and actions align. This patience is not detachment. It is wisdom. If someone from the past reappears during this time, it can feel like a test. They may sense your shift. They may feel the distance where access once existed. They may try to reconnect, curious about the change in you. This is where your growth is revealed. You no longer respond from longing or habit. You respond from clarity. You ask yourself whether this connection honors who you are now, not who you were then. And if it doesn't, you let it pass without drama. Letting go no longer feels like loss. It feels like alignment. You are not closing doors out of fear. You are choosing which ones to walk through with intention. This is a profound transformation. You are no longer waiting for love to save you. You are building a life that love can join. There is a deep sense of integrity that develops here. Your inner values and your external choices begin to match. You say no when something feels wrong. You say yes when something feels true. You stop betraying your intuition to maintain connection. This integrity creates a sense of self-respect that no relationship can take away. It becomes the foundation of everything you build moving forward. You may find that your tolerance for emotional games disappears completely. Mixed signals no longer intrigue you. Inconsistency no longer feels exciting. You are drawn to people who are clear, kind, and emotionally present. You are drawn to relationships where communication is honest, not strategic. Where conflict is addressed, not avoided. Where love is expressed openly, not hidden behind fear. This does not mean the next love will be perfect. But it will be real. It will feel grounded. It will not require you to abandon parts of yourself to make it work. And most importantly, it will feel mutual. You will no longer be carrying the weight alone. As this chapter unfolds, remember this truth. The love that has nothing to hide does not rush you, confuse you, or keep you guessing. It meets you where you are and invites you forward without pressure. You are not behind. You are right on time. Everything you have experienced has been shaping you for this level of awareness. Take a moment now and reflect on how your definition of love has evolved. Notice how your body responds to the idea of a connection that feels calm, honest, and steady. If there is a sense of relief, trust it. That relief is your soul recognizing alignment. If you feel ready, go to the comments and write, "I choose aligned love." This is not about manifesting a person. It is about affirming the standard you now live by. It is a declaration that you are no longer available for love that hides, hesitates, or asks you to disappear. In the final part, we will explore how this new standard reshapes not just your relationships, but your entire sense of purpose and direction. Stay with me. The most empowering realization is still ahead.
If you feel this chapter closing within you, if you sense that you are ready to step fully into what comes next without carrying the weight of what was hidden, go to the comments and write, "I am free and open to what's next." This is not about declaring an outcome, it is about to acknowledging your readiness. You have done the work, you have honored your heart. You have chosen yourself with honesty and compassion. Whatever unfold next will meet you at this level awareness, and that changes everything. If you like this video, please subscribe to this channel. Also comment. Thank you.